Ethical heroes are people you look up to because they have done something ethically significant, typically at a personal cost. What is their significance and how should you think about them? That is the topic of this relatively short video. So let's get to it. Hi, my name is Jouni Vilkka. Welcome to my channel, TFF Teacher from Finland. I hope you'll subscribe and click the thumbs up button. What do I mean by an ethical hero? There are some people who are known for their exemplary actions. Some people are considered heroes because they died in battle, or at least did remarkable things in combat. But that is not the kind of hero I am discussing here. Even if the aforementioned warriors can legitimately be considered heroes, it is not obvious they are ethical heroes. An ethical hero is one who does something because of ethical reasons, not because they were ordered to do it, or because they benefited from doing so, but just because it is the right thing to do. An ethical hero did something ethically significant, exemplary, and many of them suffered or died for their actions at the hands of evil people. Does that mean the heroes were ethically perfect? Of course not. Nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes and also do things we later regret. Or maybe not everyone regrets, because some people remain evil to the end. The point is not that an ethical hero is ethically perfect in every way and always was so, or even that they became ethically perfect at some point and remained so for the rest of their lives. No, it is enough that the person did that remarkable thing, even if they also did some questionable things. It is not really the person so much as the one act that we should revere, but there are also reasons to look up to the person and sing their praises, as it were. The point is that while we might not necessarily need them, having heroes to look up to may 1. Help us make the right decisions ourselves when the time comes. They also 2. Inspire us to improve ourselves, and 3. Enable us to voice our values. When we speak about the great things our heroes did, others will not only hear their stories, which they might otherwise never hear about, but also understand what sorts of things, actions and people we value, which means what sorts of people we are or want to be. We might not have the strength of character right now, or the virtues we wish we had, but we can strive toward them, with the example of our heroes guiding us. But it is important to always remember that our heroes are also only human, and as such imperfect and flawed. We don't need to raise them on a pedestal too high. A person who did one thing right might otherwise be far from ideal, and so we need to remember that it is the act we value, not necessarily the whole person. I will mention some ethical heroes shortly. These are individuals whose names first came to my mind with little prompting. I don't usually think of people this way, but these people and their actions have made such an impression on me that I didn't have to think long to remember them. I could probably come up with others as well, but the ease with which I could think of these examples perhaps says something about their importance to me. As you listen to my list of heroes, I'd like to ask you to think of who you consider your ethical heroes. Are any of them the same as mine? Let me know in the comments below. I list my heroes in chronological order by the dates of their births. The first is Florence Nightingale, which may seem like an odd choice. My reasoning for including her here is as follows. During a time when it was particularly difficult for women to get heard in public, she managed to pretty much start the whole profession of nursing, improving care for soldiers and civilians, first in Great Britain and then the rest of the world. She used scientific thinking, understood the importance of statistics, and invented ways to present her statistics in graphs. She set a fine example for critical thinkers to follow. Harriet Tubman faced far greater odds than the rich white Nightingale. Tubman was born into slavery in Maryland, but was able to escape to freedom in the city of Philadelphia, where abolitionism, the anti-slavery movement, was popular. Rather than just enjoy her freedom, Tubman started working as a so-called conductor in the so-called Underground Railroad to help others escape slavery as well. In 19 separate dangerous trips to slave states, with a bounty on her head, she was able to rescue about 70 people while taking great risks. During the Civil War, she became a spy to help the Union Army. She apparently was rather successful at that because the Southerners in their racism and sexism were careless around a black woman. She also worked in the suffrage movement, women's rights activists of the time. Against all odds, she lived to an old age, proving that heroes don't have to die violent deaths at the hands of their oppressors. Mohandas, Mahatma Gandhi, is famous for his non-violent resistance and hunger strikes, which played a big part in India gaining independence from Great Britain. Besides taking a strong stand against racism, Gandhi also took on colonialism. He understood the economics of colonialism and inspired the people of India to weave their own cloth, refusing to buy the cheap British cloth, strengthening India's own economy. Despite his Hinduism, he wanted equality for all, meaning also that the country should be secular, taking no sides in religious matters. For this, he was murdered by some Hindu fanatic. But his teachings live on. It is a shame that India is currently being led by Hindu nationalists of the worst kind. Arndt Pekurinen was a Finnish pacifist who opposed all violence. He refused to serve in the military, demanding to be allowed to serve his country as a civilian in civilian clothing, not a military uniform, without using weapons, and not within the military. He was imprisoned on separate occasions for a total of over 2 years because of this. As the Finnish fascist movement, called the Lapua movement, grew bold enough to use terrorism against their political opponents, they of course attacked Pekurinen as well. During the Second World War, he was already somewhat famous internationally, which the military leaders did not like. He was forced into the front lines and required to use a rifle, which he refused repeatedly. The captain of his unit ordered him to be executed for this. The first 2 soldiers ordered to carry out the execution refused, but the third did the dirty work. The army tried to lie about the events that led to his death, but eventually the truth came out. Pekurinen was extremely courageous, someone willing not to kill as is usual, but to die for his principles. Rosa Parks is famous for her part in the civil rights movement in the US. She resisted the segregation laws of Alabama by refusing to move into the colored section of the bus when ordered by the bus driver. As a result, she was arrested and later tried, found guilty and fined. She and others then inspired the black community to boycott the city buses, eventually for over a year, which was effective because most riders of the buses were black. They organized carpools to help each other instead of taking the bus. Parks became one of the key figures in the movement, bringing international attention to segregation in the US. She was an important activist for the cause, which cost her at least her job. Nelson Mandela makes my list because he spent 27 years in prison, although he could have chosen freedom earlier. He was imprisoned because he fought the apartheid system of South Africa. He was an activist, politician, and eventually even president of South Africa, which is amazing. He also makes my list because he did not use his power as president to seek revenge, but rather to heal and build the state. Apartheid was overturned and racial tensions were eased. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was set up to investigate any allegations of human rights abuses. Martin Luther King Jr. received the Nobel Peace Prize for his nonviolent campaign against racism. He was one of the most influential civil rights activists and no doubt played a big part in the US finally prohibiting racial discrimination in 1964. He was also against the war in Vietnam. Already before that, he had been under FBI surveillance as a suspected communist. Because of his activism, he was arrested, his home was bombed, and finally he was murdered. Sophie Scholl was one of the key members of the organization White Rose, a non-violent resistance group that opposed the Nazis, mostly by distributing pamphlets. The organization was very small, besides Sophie, including only her brother and some friends. Their clandestine work was extremely courageous, not just because of the violence of the Nazis, but also because the Nazis were popular among the general population. Technically criminals, Scholl and the White Rose are an example of how ethics are superior to laws. As just a teenager, Scholl could see how evil the Nazis were and how they corrupted German society. She was mature for her age, as well as an open-minded and intelligent person interested in things like art and philosophy, both of which she also put into practice in the anti-Nazi activism. She knew the risks but chose to do and say something, even acting against her whole society, hoping to inspire others to resist the evil regime. She was eventually captured along with her brother and convicted of treason. She was executed by guillotine. She is now considered a fine role model by many, especially in German-speaking countries. Marsha P. Johnson was, as the National Women's Museum puts it, one of the most prominent figures of the gay rights movement of the 1960s and the 1970s in New York City. Always sporting a smile, Johnson was an important advocate for homeless LGBTQ+ youth, those affected by HIV and AIDS, and gay and transgender rights. Back in those awful days, homosexuality was considered a mental illness, and the attitudes toward all LGBTQ+ people were very hostile. Even police violence against them was not uncommon. Johnson and others organized to form a group to help their community. As the Stonewall riot broke out, she was on the front lines. She then started a series of protests with other members of the community that included the Gay Pride Parades, which have become a global phenomenon, commemorating the Stonewall riot as well as proclaiming the rights of the oppressed sexual and gender minorities. And also just big colorful parties that anyone supporting the movement can join. Johnson was a prominent figure in the movement. She died under suspicious circumstances. Rachel Corrie was an American peace activist who did her best to defend Palestinians against the Zionist occupiers and oppressors. She stood in front of an Israeli bulldozer demolishing homes in the Gaza Strip. The operator of the machine crushed her to death, probably following orders. Corrie is especially remembered by the Palestinians, but especially given the current events, meaning the genocide Israel is committing at present, her sacrifice should be remembered globally. She put her life on the line for people practically on the other side of the planet from where she used to live, just because it was the right thing to do. That was no doubt a supererogatory act, something we cannot ask anyone to do. I have a video about that concept, see the link below. The least the rest of us can do is support Palestine, boycott Israel, and demand that the international community stop the atrocities continuously committed by Israel, the only country still practicing apartheid. Malala Yousafzai was forced to live in fear of the Taliban in Afghanistan. She was only 11 when she began her activism for the education of girls by writing a public internet diary. She was able to raise funds for a school bus. She and other girls in the bus were shot by members of the Taliban in an attempt to permanently silence her. The disgusting Taliban movement had opposed the education of girls for a long time for allegedly religious reasons, and had tried to terrorize Malala and her father to stop their activism and close the school for girls her father was running. Luckily, Yousafzai survived and became an instant poster child for the education of girls worldwide. She has given addresses to the UN and the EU Parliament and received honors and prizes, including the Nobel Peace Prize. Greta Thunberg became famous for school-related activism as well, but in her case it was skipping school in order to bring attention to the Swedish government's inaction in climate matters. Her activism has always been based on science, and she has always insisted that people should listen to the scientists and act to save our planet. Her call was important because too many of us, myself included, even though we had known about anthropogenic global warming for a long time, were somehow passive and resigned to our fate. She inspired millions of people with her example. If a 15-year-old kid can see reason, take action and make a difference, perhaps humanity isn't a lost cause after all. There are also some heroes I don't know by name, but know of in other ways. Many have stood up to demonstrate and protest against more or less repressive regimes throughout history. Many of them have suffered or died to make the world better. During the Tiananmen Square protests in 1989, there was an incident involving military tanks rolling toward the square. Some unknown civilian stepped in front of the line of tanks, moving in response to the tanks' movement, so that they would have to run him over if they wanted to keep moving toward the square. He was not even a demonstrator, just someone who had been grocery shopping, apparently still carrying shopping bags in his hands. Surprisingly, the tanks stopped because the commander did not want to kill this innocent civilian. So there were two heroes in this case. I do not know what happened to them afterwards, but I fear the worst. Information regarding this tankman incident is censored in China, but the incident is still famous worldwide. I have now shown merely a sample of ethical heroes. Many other exemplary individuals no doubt exist. You may already have some in mind. If their example inspires you to do good deeds, trying to make a difference for good, spreading kindness, helping others, saving the earth, or any other worthy cause, I suggest you follow their example. Those spreading hate and toxic beliefs like racism, nationalism, sexism, and speciesism are not worth following. The rich and powerful tend to support such people for their own benefit. Even cultural norms and traditions may support various forms of evil. Such are the enemies you need to resist, organize against, and hopefully overcome for the good of mankind and all sentient life, and for the future of science. I will put some links below in case you want more information about the heroes on my list. Also, I would very much like to hear about your heroes, so please post about them in the comment section below. And don't forget to let me know what you thought of my examples. That is all. Bye for now. If you wish to support my channel, please click thumbs up, subscribe, and share my videos. Any comments on the videos would also be welcome.